Welcome to Equestrian Fitness for the Long Ride with the Sweaty Equestrian. I'm personal trainer and endurance rider Tamara Baysinger, and I'm here to help you ride stronger in a day and longer in your life. Hey everybody, welcome to the podcast. If you are a new listener, welcome. It is such a pleasure to have you. And for those who have already subscribed and left your kind reviews, thank you so much. If you have ever run a website or a blog or a newsletter or a podcast or written a book, you know that hearing from readers or listeners is what keeps you going. You guys are great, and I appreciate you so much. We have a lot to cover today. This is going to be a long one, so let's dive right in. I want to talk today about how to improve your riding. Of course, we always talk about that, but specifically how to improve your riding in just 90 minutes a week without cutting into your actual riding time, because it's almost summer, at least in my part of the world, and there is nothing we would rather be doing, right? But the thing is, riding is a skill sport. Optimal performance in the saddle relies on balance, focus, timing, and precise movements. It doesn't necessarily take extraordinary cardiovascular endurance like soccer or extreme strength like bodybuilding, but in the absence of adequate fitness, we're not going to be able to ride with the symmetry and the softness and the nuance that our horses deserve. Of course, riding itself, ideally under the eye of a skilled instructor, is crucial for building the skill of riding. However, riding alone is rarely enough to develop the level of fitness we need for optimal performance. And this is because, well, first of all, most of us don't spend enough time riding, especially with a coach, to correct movement patterns that are ingrained but incorrect. And then on top of that, riding, even correctly, will only build our strength and mobility within the limits that most of our rides require, and not anymore. And we do actually need to have more capacity than we usually access in the saddle. Now, why would that be? Well, the higher your capacity, the smaller a percentage of your total ability is going to be needed for any particular drill or ride. This is going to prevent you from getting into a situation where you feel like you lack the strength or control that you need to accomplish your goal, whether that's a little bit more collection or holding in a hot horse or eking out one more flying lead change. The stronger you are also, the later in life you're going to be able to keep riding despite the inevitable decline that comes with age. In other words, the higher you start on the escalator of fitness and the more you climb against the downward pull of age, the longer it's going to be before you end up in the basement where you have to stop riding. The problem, of course, is that most of us equestrians are very, very busy. We all have the usual life stuff like everybody else, jobs, school, commutes, families, friends. And then on top of that, we have stall cleaning, farrier visits, fence maintenance, riding lessons, play days, training sessions, conditioning rides on top of it. So our personal fitness often gets shuffled to the bottom of the deck, which is unfortunate because then we aren't able to achieve the best possible riding performance and comfort that we spend so much time and money on in all these other ways. But what if I told you that you could make real, meaningful improvement to your rider fitness in just 90 minutes a week? 3 half-hour sessions. Well, that's exactly what I'm going to tell you, because here's the thing. You can't just toss any old exercises into a 30-minute window and expect to get results. I mean, maybe if you spent 5 or 6 hours a week in the gym, that spaghetti at the wall approach would be enough for something to stick. But you can get maximum benefit out of minimum time if you are extremely intentional. So you need to ask yourself some questions in order to figure out how to be intentional in the right way. What do you need to do with, say, 3 30-minute workouts a week in order to actually move the needle on your riding? So here are some questions to ask. What are the key physical abilities that I need as a rider? What body parts are the most affected? What do those body parts need to be able to do? What are the best exercises to help my body parts get better at those things? What will keep my body improving over time instead of hitting a plateau? And finally, what can I realistically maintain consistently as a long-term complement to my riding? So in today's episode, I'm going to answer 5 out of those 6 questions. We're going to mostly skip over number 4 because that was the one about which exercises you should do. And this is a podcast, and this audio format is not really the best way to show you the exercises to improve your riding. Like, even if I listed them out and I said something like, do bird dogs or active planks, there's a big difference between doing the exercise and doing it correctly in a way that actually makes a difference. That's why all the workouts that I create for the Sweaty Equestrian members are follow along style, so that you and I can do them together and I can coach you through the details that make the exercises actually do what they're supposed to instead of just going through the motions, because that is a waste of your precious time. And that is the opposite of the point of this episode. So instead of giving you a list of exercises, what I'm going to do is point you in the direction of where you can find them. But first, let's talk about the other 5 questions. What are the key physical abilities I need as a rider? What body parts are most affected? What do those body parts need to be able to do? What will keep my body improving over time? And what can I realistically maintain? Remember, our goal here is to figure out how to actually improve our riding in just 90 minutes per week of out-of-saddle exercises. So are you ready? Let's start with question 1. What are the key physical abilities that I need as a rider? Well, we equestrians need to have an independent seat, hands, and legs. That is, we need to be able to allow our pelvis to move with the horse while our torso and limbs remain relatively still. Also, our hands should be able to follow the bit without hanging on the horse's mouth for balance or getting pulled out of position. Our legs need to be able to offer nuanced cues without disturbing the balance of our seat on the horse's back. So, independent seat, hands, and legs. We also need balance. Obviously, we need good balance in order to stay astride a powerful, unpredictable animal, but balance is also closely related to rhythm. And both of those, balance and rhythm, are important for our ability to follow the horse's stride and remain centered instead of reacting to his movement after it occurs and falling slightly behind. So we need to be able to move our body parts independently while staying balanced and in rhythm with the horse. What else? Well, we need to be symmetrical, don't we? From front to back and side to side. If we tend to slump forward or collapse through one shoulder or one hip, we are inevitably going to interfere with our horse's physical ability to move. And none of us want to be that rider who is unfairly blaming the horse for his unwillingness to bend or collect when actually it is us getting in the way. Now, we could sum this up by saying that as riders, we need the mobility, strength, and control to achieve nuanced movement for extended periods of time in a dynamic environment. Let me say that one more time because it's a lot. Riders need the mobility, strength, and control to achieve nuanced movement for extended periods of time in a dynamic environment. That leads us to question number 2. What body parts are most affected? Well, anyone who has taken a few good riding lessons knows that riding is truly a full body skill. Not much gets left out. I mean, maybe your hair and your earlobes. But that said, when we think of the parts of our bodies that have the most critical interaction with our horses, there are 3 areas that rise to the top. The first is our core. You can't read even a paragraph about rider fitness anywhere without acknowledging how all those muscles of the trunk, from the obliques to the deep corset of the transverse abdominis, they are crucial for everything from sitting the trot to sticking a spin. Not only do our core muscles need to be strong, but they must be capable of keeping us stable in a dynamic environment. Because as we ride, everything moves. So just doing a bunch of static plank exercises is not going to cut it. The second critical body part is the lumbopelvic hip complex, or LPHC. This is the whole complicated bundle where our pelvis serves as the connector between our lumbar spine and our legs. Our center of gravity resides here. All the force generated by our powerful gluteal or butt muscles and lower limbs, not to mention our horses, travels through the lumbopelvic hip complex. And about 30 different muscles in this region connect around the area of our hip joints. The LPHC represents our most direct connection to our horses. And as you can imagine, any weakness or tension or asymmetry in this area will have an immediate impact on both our horses and our own comfort and performance. And then finally, so we had the core, we had the LPHC. The third critical area that I have to include is the mid-back muscles, particularly the lower trapezius and the serratus muscles. These are crucial for controlling the shoulder blades. And this is what enables us to achieve that lovely upright posture in the saddle, prevent rooting at the bit and getting dragged forward, and also relieve the shoulder pain that is particularly common in female riders around age 40 and up. So we've identified 3 key body parts: the core, the lumbopelvic hip complex, which you can think of kind of as your hips for short, and the mid-back, where the scapula interact with the thoracic spine. In a secondary category, which is also extremely important, we could place a bunch more body parts: the knee, the shoulder, and the ankle joints, plus all the large muscles in our legs and our arms. All this leads us to question number 3. What do these key body parts need to be able to do? The answer to that boils down to 2 main things: mobility and strength. But what does that mean exactly? And how much mobility, how much strength do we need? First off, mobility, it's important to say, is more than just flexibility. That is, it's more than just whether you can get a joint into a certain position or stretch a muscle to a particular extent. True mobility is flexibility plus strength. In other words, we equestrians need to be able to achieve precise control of our muscles and joints all the way through their full range of motion. Now, what about strength? We already mentioned that we don't necessarily need maximum raw ability to move a load against resistance in order to ride. Although I will disagree with some of my fellow rider fitness professionals here and say that I believe it is really, really important for us to build more strength and muscle mass than our riding today or this week or this season requires. Why? Because we are all going to lose strength and muscle with age. And the more we have now, the longer we'll have enough to keep riding into older age, even as we face that natural age-related decline. If you want to explore that idea, I really dig into it in episode 8. But that said, it is not necessary for us to be powerlifters or strong men or women in order to ride. However, we absolutely do require enough strength that we can automatically maintain good posture. We can correct any tendency to collapse forward or sideways, and we can move with our horses without pain. Strength is what gives us stability, and stability is what gives us softness. Think about that. Softness is the hallmark of excellent riding. But when we are weak, we are unbalanced and tense. Only when we have underlying strength can we then have the security and the balance to relax and truly connect with our horses. That's where the softness comes from. Okay, so if we agree that we need mobility and strength through our entire bodies, but especially the core, the hips, and the mid-back, how do we get it? And more to the point of today's episode, how do we get it in just 90 minutes a week? That takes us to questions 4 through 6. Now, question 4 is the one about which exercises we should do. And as I mentioned before, we're going to skip over that one today because getting the exercises right is more about showing than telling. I do have that available for you, so hang tight and I'll tell you where to find it in a bit. First, though, what about question 5? What will keep my rider fitness improving over time instead of hitting a plateau? Well, there are several components to this, but the main one I want to hit on today is progression. Progression is the key concept in rider fitness that you just don't get from random videos on YouTube or even to a large extent from things like yoga and Pilates. Those things can be great for improving mobility, but they typically aren't going to increase your strength much beyond the initial boost of muscle endurance when you first start, and then they sort of flatten out over the long term. Progression is all about starting where you are, no matter what level that is, and then gradually increasing the challenge so that your body has to meet higher and higher demands. Depending where you are right now, maybe you need to start by shoring up some areas where you really aren't quite as strong and mobile to be able to ride as well as you want to. And that's great. Start there and fix those holes. But then here's the key. Progress. Remember, we want to get you to the place where you don't just have enough fitness to get through your ride. We want you to have so much fitness that the basic physicality of riding is easy and automatic, and now you're freed up to get the most out of nuanced skill building in the arena, or focus on taking care of yourself and your horse on something like a 100-mile endurance ride. So when you're spending that 90 minutes a week on your rider fitness, be sure that you are continuing to challenge your limits and raise the bar as your mobility and strength improve. And finally, that leads us to question number 6. What can I realistically maintain consistently as a long-term complement to my riding? In other words, how can I stick with this? Well, part of the answer is in the 90 minutes per week, and part is in the progression that we just discussed, making sure that you are spending those 3 30-minute sessions on something that's challenging for your current level. Why? Because built into both of those things, the limited time and the progression, is one of the keys to sticking to your fitness commitment. And that is simply not overcommitting. If you're anything like me, you tend to get excited about a concept, either because something happened to make you realize that you really need to change, or because it clicked how much better your riding could be if you did make this change, and you decide you're going to do all the things. I'm going to walk 10,000 steps a day and eat 3 veggies with every meal and do cardio intervals twice a week and take up strength training and dig out those old Pilates videos again. And you know that I would be a fan of every single one of those things, except that unless you are retired and you also have a very self-disciplined nature, it's probably not going to happen. If you're like most of us, you'll make it a few days, maybe even a couple weeks, and then you will inevitably start missing things, and then you'll get discouraged and you'll bag the whole project before it has time to influence your riding. So my advice is to commit to something manageable. Maybe it's those 3 30-minute workouts a week. And if you wanted to add one single nutrition component, say replacing your takeout lunch order with homemade veggies and lots of protein, excellent. So commit, yes, but don't overcommit. The other piece is motivation. Once you start seeing results, and that'll typically take, say, 4 to 6 weeks to really kick in, you're going to be motivated by getting more results. This stuff really works, I promise. But what if you struggle to make it to that point in the first place? A lot of people do, and you're definitely not alone. And not being alone is the key. You just have to be not alone with the right people. So find yourself that community where people will pull alongside you and keep it fun and encouraging while not accepting your excuses. This can be in person. It can be online. Maybe it's a combination where you and a friend both do an online program together. Another thing you can do, preferably again with other riders, but on your own can work too, is you can take on a specific time-bound challenge. Now, this works best if it is input-based, meaning that you are measuring your success against your consistency showing up and doing the thing, rather than on demanding something where you can't fully control the timeline of your results, like losing 10 pounds or being able to sit the canter. The inputs are going to reward you right away because I said I would do the workout. I did the workout. Awesome. This is especially true if you have a community waiting to hear that you did your workout, so they can give you a high five, virtually or literally. So again, a couple simple things you can do are to keep your commitment realistic. That 90 minutes a week, 3 half-hour sessions is a great place to start because it's enough to give you results, but not so much that you won't keep fitting it in. And then another key piece is finding people who will hold you accountable while you wait for those results to kick in. Okay, I promised I would circle back to question 4 about figuring out which exercises will really move the needle on those key body parts for riding. And I've actually pulled everything we talked about today into a program called Stable in the Saddle. It is launching as a group challenge that starts June 1st, 2026. So here's what we're going to do. It's 3 workouts per week, each just 30 minutes long. That's your 90 minutes a week. You can do the workouts right at home. All you need is resistance bands and a yoga mat. Each workout is going to focus on those key body parts that we talked about: the core, the lumbopelvic hip complex, and the mid-back. But we also aren't going to forget about the knees, shoulders, ankles, arms, and legs. The whole point is to prepare your body to get the most out of your riding. The workouts are all follow-along style so that I can show you and explain exactly how to do the exercises and why we're doing what we're doing. The challenge is 6 weeks long, so that's enough time to actually make a change. And over those 6 weeks, I'm going to show you how to progress from your starting level, whatever that is, and then keep leveling up as you improve. You get a built-in community of riders because this is a group challenge with horsewomen from around the world, and you can either join on your own or grab a friend from the barn and both of you do it. Now, I know it's summertime, so if you're worried about, I'd love to do this, but it's 6 weeks long and I have some shows or rides that we're taking the fam to Disney, whatever. Don't worry. There is a makeup window at the end so that you can get caught up if you need to. And also remember, it's only 90 minutes a week and it takes almost no equipment. So you can follow the workouts on your phone, even if you take the challenge on the road. I actually did some of the preparing for the challenge, testing the workouts and things in a hotel room because I myself had to be traveling. And here's another thing to think about. So what if you don't quite finish? Say you do 80% of the workouts and you get 80% of the benefits. That is still putting you way ahead of where you would have been after 6 weeks if you did nothing, right? And finally, I wanted this to be super accessible for you to get started on a strong and successful ride season. So I have priced this challenge at just $59, $10 a week for 6 weeks, plus you get the makeup days. Now, if that's something that appeals to you, and if you want to give it a try, you can get all the details and sign up at thesweatyequestrian.com/stable challenge. It's called the Stable in the Saddle Challenge. I will put that link in the show notes, thesweatyequestrian.com/stable challenge. And go there fast. Enrollment for the challenge does close on May 31st, 2026, because we start on June 1st. So I hope to see you on the inside, but whether you take the challenge or not, I really, really hope that you have gathered up some new tools today that are going to help you ride stronger in a day and longer in your life. Want to get more sweaty? Subscribe to my newsletter at thesweatyequestrian.com/newsletter. And remember, you have what it takes to be a full athletic partner for your horse. Saddle up strong.